Welcome to Balanced Sourcing and Supply. This lecture relates to Part A4, the production flowchart. Here you must include a fully realised supply chain for one of the above products. That's either the sportswear piece or the casual wear piece. You must include a rationale behind supply decisions examining the following through written analysis. Fabric composition. What is the fabric made of? Is it 100% cotton? Is it polyester nylon? Type of textile. Is it woven, knitted or non-woven? Colour process required, so therefore, for the dyeing method, is it yarn dye? Is it piece dye? What testing and what challenges are you facing with this fabric? Fabric factory selection, how have you selected your fabric factory? The finishing required, wash, decorative effect, e.g. an embroidery, an attachment of a trim, a print effect, any fixing or technical finishes. Manufacturing factory selection, who is making this garment for you and why, and the production risks, highlighting the main challenges with producing this product. So let's start with what is sourcing. You need your sourcing to understand your production flowchart, obviously. So sourcing is a procurement practice and it's aimed at finding, evaluating and engaging suppliers for acquiring goods and services. Global sourcing, which is what you're engaged in for this project, is sourcing outside of your national borders. And why would we do this? It's to take advantage of global efficiencies in production, be that time, cost or quality. The optimum mix of sourcing markets differs for every apparel company. First, they must define what they need, then compare with the strengths and weaknesses of various countries, weighing the trade-offs among 5 main criteria. Cost of the product, quality of the product, capacity of the factory, speed at which they can make it, i.e. your lead time, and the risk. What is the risk to you as a supplier for sourcing from this factory? General data you can review at your own leisure, but the market is valued at $3 trillion, that's 3,000 billion, and the global apparel market accounts for 2% of the world's GDP. Sourcing reaches every country, and most avenues are explored. So what has helped global sourcing develop? First of all, reduced labour costs, flexible labour force and a willingness to work overtime. As you know, in the UK, we don't have a labour force that allows us to work our machineries and fill our factories. Therefore, this has moved overseas. A flexible and transient labour force, and actually just more people means you have a bigger labour force. A lack of jobs in other areas means a willingness to work overtime, which means the factories will push harder. Advances in technologies have been significant. The speed of the internet and fashion digital tools. So, for example, when I first started in the industry, we had to fax our orders across once a week. Yes, we actually had to fax them once a week. Whereas now, I can just ping an email, send a WhatsApp, my orders are there immediately. Or my information about my spec pack has been updated immediately over email. Speed of the internet has been huge. And the fashion digital tools, the fact that you can now create woven fabrics, knitted fabrics, and even your specs all online without having to print anything out, means the speed of changing these and the speed of seeing something and how it might look different is so much quicker. Elimination of quotas. So the MFA was phased out in 2005 in the USA, and Canada and the EU imposed quotas on what could be imported from 73 developing countries. So now, whereas before we were only allowed to import a certain amount of goods from abroad, those quotas have now been dropped. Trade agreements. The AGOA and Everything But Arms Free Trade Agreement with Bangladesh. These are actually government incentives to produce goods in less developed countries. And the Everything But Arms means that there are either reduction in duty or duty-free imports from Bangladesh on anything that is produced there that is not arms. Duty savings. These vary from country to country and they change regularly. They are often fibre related and offer a percentage kickback when you import from a different country. So, for example, you might receive a percentage kickback for importing polyester, for example, from Bangladesh. Sourcing is constantly changing. Retailers have large sourcing teams to oversee this area, but you as buyers must understand that you will be told at the beginning of the season, for example. Sourcing it now has to happen in Ethiopia, for example, because we have the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which is the AGOA agreement, which means that you have preferred sourcing through Africa. So where are companies sourcing from, importing versus exporting? So in 2013, the leading world apparel export trade countries were China, then Italy, Bangladesh, and Hong Kong for exporting. Developed countries such as the US, Germany, Japan, France, and the UK are engaged in importing activities, while exporting countries such as China, Italy, Bangladesh, and Hong Kong are involved in the export of goods. To give you some context, in the 1960s, the developed countries above, i.e. US, Germany, Japan, and France, were mainly exporting their goods. Now they are all major importers. So why are companies sourcing from these countries? The first option is the offer of reduced cost. They also might have a larger capacity than current route. Out of the thousands of factories in Bangladesh, you might be able to get your 10,000 t-shirts made, whereas your factory in China might be full and saying they can't fulfill your order. They could have become a specialised place of manufacture. For example, Vietnam has added value to its manufacturing sites by becoming specialised in outerwear and taped seams. There could be duty benefits, as discussed before, or it could be that the retailer is trying to create competition in their current supply chain. For example, right now, a lot of retailers are holding Bangladesh over the barrel by sourcing through Ethiopia. But if they don't have their next sourcing route laid out, Bangladesh can in theory hold them over a barrel by increasing their prices. So there are two trends we're seeing. Some companies are seeking to reduce costs further by sourcing from largely untapped low-cost countries in Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, while others are looking for ways to boost the productivity of their current supply base. So how is the buyer involved? How would you be involved? As a buyer, you are following the global sourcing market trends. You gain knowledge to source the right products in the right countries. But why would you be moving your supply chain and sourcing? You would be moving it because you generally want to improve your margin, i.e., you want to lower your cost price, so keep your retail price the same but lower your cost price, therefore improving your margin. Or you want to improve quality, generally without affecting your margin. Or you want to improve lead time. Let's say if it takes you 20 weeks to get a product to market, maybe you want to cut that down to 16. You want to be responsive and closer to the buying. Or you want to find new products and develop new technology. Moving into Taiwan, moving into Korea could help you do that. Or you want to improve compliance and corporate social responsibility. For example, your factory could have had an issue with maybe a fire escape route, or possibly keeping a second number of sewers on a different set of books, and you found out during an audit. Therefore, you'll be moving your goods to a different factory to improve your compliance. There is also proximity sourcing, either nearshoring or onshoring, often called co-location when in the same place. And this is used when it comes to high quality products and fast fashion items. If you go to Make It British Live this week on Wednesday or Thursday, you'll see an example of what the UK can do in terms of manufacturing. Mid-market brands and retailers find proximity sourcing especially attractive, but some discount retailers are joining in as well. Primark, Boohoo, Missguided are all taking advantage of manufacturing in Leicester and Manchester so they can get goods to market even more speedily. You can see here in this example from All Saints that you have a leather jacket made in India, you have a fine knitted sweater, 100% cotton, made in China. You have black, skinny, stretched jeans made in Turkey. And then you have leather sandals made in Brazil. So just with a small snapshot of products from a high street retailer like All Saints, you can see how sourcing is so important to them. So how do companies source? Large companies have sourcing teams, sometimes called central sourcing, or it might be a person that sources across all the different departments. Small companies, buyers and designers will source directly. So you'll source from your buying offices. So you might, for example, have a retailer with an office in London, and then you might have a buying office, for example, in Hong Kong, or Bangladesh, or Shanghai. That buying office will be filled with local people, but they work for your retailer. Therefore, they have your quality standards in mind, your quantities in mind, and understand your ethos and KPIs. So buying offices are a very good way to work. A lot of retailers will also use suppliers. They could be FSV or direct. FSV is a full service vendor, which means that the retailer places an order with the supplier, and the next time they have to deal with that after they've agreed the cost price is when it's in their factory in the UK. A full service vendor is a very attractive offer, but it comes with an expense. Or it could be direct supplier that works direct, which means that the buyer goes to the supplier to utilise their manufacturing routings, and they actually place their order. The retailer places their order direct with the factories. There could be agents that they go through on a much smaller scale. You might be working with agents who represent a number of factories. Retailers could go direct to factories, but with that comes the entire supply chain process. You can also source through trade shows and through your industry contacts. So why do we need balanced sourcing? You can't have all of your manufacturing in one place. It is widely seen as having too many eggs in one basket. What happens if that factory had a financial issue that you weren't aware of? Perhaps H&M come in and they accept an order for 200,000 pieces and push you to the side. What if all of your goods were delayed? Or perhaps with that factory, what if it's in a country with a slightly unstable political situation? You might often find that factories are shut down when there are political rallies due to the safety of the workers. If that was to happen, all of your goods could, in theory, be shut in that warehouse and you won't be able to get them out. Therefore, you must have a balanced sourcing sheet so that you can mitigate your risk when you are sourcing. So the sourcing risks that could happen. So a political risk would be the political instability leading to workers' strikes, or a change in government and laws, or possibly even an election, which often can mean a week-long delay in certain countries. Countries in Central America and in Asia are often shut down during elections. An environmental risk would be a disaster. For example, the Nepal earthquake of 2015, floods in Bangladesh, or the Aral Sea becoming dry in Uzbekistan and no longer be able to hydrate the crops. Any number of environmental disasters can pose a sourcing risk. Or it could be an economical risk, currency fluctuations. Brexit is a classic example. Many people had started their sampling and initial production in Portugal, and after Brexit, due to the pound dropping in value, suddenly all the Portuguese routes were 12% more expensive than they were 6 months previously. Oil prices increasing, which will affect the cost of shipping and air freight, and also the price of polyester, and a change in duty laws. Your margin will be affected by these duty laws. Therefore, any changes in duty laws must be made aware of, as planning is essential. If we look at different countries we can source from, The UK is becoming a more popular place, with our population of 64.5 million, and 500,000 people are in the industry. We specialise in wool, leather and cotton, and our pros are a quick lead time, and the cachet of UK manufacturing is often appealing abroad when selling your goods abroad. But the cons, it's expensive, the industry is small and has gone into decline, factories can be old and difficult to change, and there is lack of a skilled workforce. Portugal, population 10.3 million, so relatively small, but 1.2 million are in the industry. They specialise in leather, accessories, sports, cycling and jersey fabrics. Pros are high quality and low minimums, and relatively quick response due to the fact they're being close to the UK. Communication. They speak excellent English and understand the fashion industry. Cons. There are low minimums as well, in the sense that 300 pieces is actually quite high for some people. They're expensive compared to Poland, Romania and Turkey. Italy, population 61.3 million, but they don't publish how many people are in the industry. Still have a great foothold within the sourcing arena. Their specialty is footwear, accessories, leather, wool and linen. Pros, obviously very high quality. Luxury goods, known for the luxury goods, low minimums, artisanal expertise and specialty products. The cons is they can be expensive and often niche. Turkey, with a population of 79.6 million and an unknown number in the industry, Turkey has opened itself up to actually being a great sourcing hub and close to Europe. They specialise in denim, cotton, leather and jersey, but you can find most sources of manufacturing. The pros are the good quality, large volumes and quick response. Cons are compliance. We hear a lot of stories of the refugee crisis, people being employed unethically within the industry, and political instability. Lots of sourcing trips have had to be cancelled or cut short due to political instability. India, 1.3 billion, and the number in the industry is 60 million. So to put that in perspective, we've got round about 64 million in the UK, so it's like the entire population of the UK working in the industry. They specialise in cotton, embroidery, and they have a rich textile history. Pros, it's very developed, large volumes, embroidery expertise and good communication. Cons, red tape. It is notorious, but Indian red tape really can be quite difficult. And it is a large market to navigate. With so much choice, how do you choose without having someone on the ground to really explain to you that you're choosing the right factory? Bangladesh, 163 million and 3.6 million within the industry. Their specialty is cotton. However, they are moving into different areas and adding value within their supply chain. We are starting to see polyesters and also some outerwear coming out of Bangladesh. Pros, cheap, as it has low labour costs and large volumes. However, we again are starting to see Bangladesh move away from this, as they already have Ethiopia biting at their heels for the cheapest place to manufacture. Cons, compliance, safety, subcontracting. There are many issues with manufacturing in Bangladesh. Shipping time to the UK is long, and they are known for their basic products. Communication can at times be very difficult. China, population 1.4 billion, and within an industry of 10 million, and that is just in the garments. Specialty, they'll tell you they can do any product. And you can probably find a factory that can do any product. The pros are the variety of products, good quality, no longer cheap, and the communication is now very good. But the cons for the retailers is rising labour costs, government control, so they might shut things down due to environmental issues. I'm remembering during the Beijing Olympics that for 3 months they shut down all the factories around Beijing because of the smog. But that was with no word of a warning. And then shipping time to the UK. Again, this can add significant time to your lead time. Moving on, to overseas purchase orders, Incoterms and payment terms. These are all areas that you must be aware of, especially when working within your FMP and you're doing the buying pathway. You must understand how these will affect your buying. The overseas PO. To confirm your contract, you must raise a PO, which is a purchase order. This is a commercial document issued from a buyer to a seller which lists out the below: what is being bought, the quantities, the agreed price, the payment terms, the Incoterms, the seller's details, and the buyer's details. The PO is often the main contract and constitute the first legally binding offer between the seller and the buyer. Production will not start until the PO is received. Payment terms. Small companies will be often requested to do 100% before delivery. And if there is a relationship between the manufacturer and the company, maybe 50% before delivery and 50% on delivery. The factory will not ship until proof of payment is received. For large companies, you'll start hearing things like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So large companies will have a 30-day grace period after being invoiced to pay, or 60 or 90 days. Obviously 90 is the most desirable, but a lot of factories will not accept 90 days after invoice. Incoterms, you may have heard this term before. It is the international commercial terms of trade. There are 13 main terms and several secondary terms that list the points at which the shipper, the carrier, and the consignee risk and responsibility start and end. So the Incoterms are between the seller and the buyer, i.e. the factory that is manufacturing your goods and the retailer that is buying the goods. These are pre-agreed between the seller and the buyer. And they will agree who pays the cost of each transportation segment, who is responsible for loading and unloading the goods, who bears the risk of loss at any given point during an international shipment. Incoterms also influence customs valuation on the basis of imported merchandise. I'm going to take you through the four most common: ex works, free on board, cost insurance rate, and delivery duty paid. You will start hearing these terms in the industry, so it's good to become familiar with them now. So let's start with ex works, which is the lowest price, the lowest to add to your cost price. It is the greatest risk for you, the buyer, as the supplier no longer is responsible for the goods as soon as they leave the factory. Ex works means that the manufacturer leaves the goods at the factory door, and that is it. You at that point now own those goods. You must transport them and pay for the insurance for them to get to your warehouse. FOB Hong Kong is to a named port. Therefore, it's a little bit more expensive. Maybe it's 5 cents on your cost price. A little bit less risk for the buyer, as the supplier is responsible until goods reach the locally named dockyard. For example, you might hear FOB Hong Kong, FOB Chittagong. Therefore, the garment manufacturer is responsible for getting the goods to the dock and the insurance of those goods until they get there. At that point, once they are received in the dock, they are then your responsibility. You must pay for the transport, you must pay for the insurance, and get them to your warehouse. C&F, which is cost and freight, to a named destination or port, or CIF, cost, insurance and freight. This can add maybe 15 to 20 cents to your cost price. So it's adding price to your cost price, but it's less risk for your buyer. The supplier has included the cost and the freight, or the cost, insurance and the freight, to the named dock, e.g. Southampton. So actually, if you think about it, the garment manufacturer, let's say in Bangladesh, is responsible for getting the goods to the dock, then getting them from the dock in Bangladesh across the sea, shipping them into Southampton dock, and the insurance that it costs to get them there. At that point, when they arrive in Southampton, they are then you, the buyer's responsibility. The most expensive and the final one is DDP, delivery duty paid, to a named warehouse. This is the Incoterm that involves the least risk to the buyer, as the supplier is responsible right up until the branded warehouse. However, this comes with a significant cost and is not often used in retail because the cost is too great.